What is up? Thanks for stopping in on this NixOS challenge video here. I'm going to do a live stream tonight, walking all the way through such a complicated process as installing Plasma Desktop on Nix, and then getting a user running with the sudo privileges as well. It's actually very straightforward so long as you have like this solid understanding of so many levels of Linux. And I know that like some people have never heard, have always heard of Nix. Some people have never heard of Nix, and very few people on both sides actually know what NixOS is capable of or what it's used for. And so, real quick before I continue, I do want to shout out Jupiter Broadcasting's NixOS challenge. That is the whole reason why I'm doing this. Right now, he's got a bunch of people to try out NixOS and the Nix package manager on all kinds of different platforms, and I'm just going to hang out with the Virtualbox tonight. In the future, I'll probably make more videos with like my laptop, or maybe even installing it on a separate partition or a separate hard drive on my main PC, something like that. And we'll see what happens. But as for now, my initial list of things that I want to get through are shown on the left side of the screen there. First up, we're going to create some partitions. I've actually not used parted. I've always used gparted. So getting used to parted is kind of interesting. I've used fdisk in the past as well, so that's what I was trying to use up front. It's kind of easier to do that with like the UEFI commands I found, but I'm going to go ahead and revert back to parted for the BIOS operations. I found out that trying to do UEFI on Virtualbox especially is kind of hard. And then I'm going to go ahead and configure a basic, like I said, basic NixOS user with super user privileges, and then install a desktop environment. And then so however long that ends up taking, we'll maybe continue on and do some of the other things in the list, like go on to install Home Manager if that's possible. I have no idea exactly what I'm doing with Flakes, but I know they're cool. And then installing Vim and configuring Vim is kind of a challenge as well on its own. But the main challenge is for to install a desktop environment and HTOP, and then to send Jupiter Broadcasting just a picture of your machine doing that, running HTOP in a terminal. So the basic desktop environment, whenever I boot, I hope to have Firefox, Vim, and HTOP. Hopefully HTOP's easy to install. Hopefully there's nothing else that I don't know about to install HTOP, but it's not actually in the list. We'll do that when we install the desktop environment. So right now, I made sure I could get to grub using parted, because I actually dry ran this just with this setup, and I couldn't boot. I did a whole bunch of configuration and couldn't boot. So sometimes you have to make sure you can boot before you go on to do the configuration and see where else you'll fail. But everything seemed like it was going to be fine. Everything wrote to the disk just fine. And then whenever I rebooted, something was wrong with grub. So I'm going to continue on rebooting this virtual machine with the disk in it. Just do that. And we'll go through some of these commands I have to my left as well. At the very bottom of my list. Remove. All right, insert so I'm actually using the NixOS minimal install. I know a lot of people I've seen opt to use like a graphical installer. It's really nice. The KDE version comes with the gparted installed, but instead of doing that, instead of doing the easy way, I'm opting to do it on the command line for some strange reason. I guess I've used gparted for so long that I'm ready just to try it out. So I'm going to reboot this thing with the disk in, and then hit the regular installer. By the way, this has 2 gigs of memory, 20 gig hard drive, and it's capable of sound. And it's connected to the network, of course. There's no shared folders, nothing like that. Oh, I forgot to introduce. I have Jesse behind me. He's hanging out with me. He's getting a crash course in like not only NixOS but Linux altogether. He's played with Ubuntu before, but that's about it. So I've been running through like some of the command line stuff that's really scary, but actually kind of cool when you take a look at it and you understand the basics of it. So I'm gonna try and stay in frame. It's kind of a small area. We're immediately introduced just to the root or the user, the NixOS user here. Where is my mouse? Oh. And what we're wanting to do first is we have so I already have the partitions written, so it'll boot. So I already know that'll work. But I'm going to go through the process of just doing that over. Usually you'd just be given a block that's 20 gigabytes, just nothing to set up whenever you set up an initial disk. So I'm going to start typing sudo parted dev sda, and then make label. And so that's going to destroy the entire disk. And so if I list the block again, we get the SDA I was just mentioning, the 20 gigabyte SDA block device. And then if we do another operation with parted again, instead of make label, we'll make part, mkprt, eart primary. And so we want to make a partition that is all but 8 gigabytes of our entire disk, right? So starting at 1 megabyte, we want everything but up to minus 8 gigabytes of the entire disk. So we'll do that. And then we will not write that out again. We'll go ahead and one more time make another primary partition called Linux swap. And that's going to be from 8 gigabytes from the minus 8 gigabytes that we just declared in the last thing up to the 100% usage of the block. So that's what that's doing right there, is it's taking up all but 8 gigabytes in that first command, and then the last 8 gigabytes to the 100% of the device as the secondary partition. And so that secondary partition, what a Linux swap does is actually just basically is used for hibernation, as far as I'm aware, suspend and resume. Or if you don't have enough memory in a machine, you can always use Linux swap, as far as I'm aware, to be like virtual memory. I may be incorrect about that, but that's as far as I'm aware how it's used. So we're going to go on to format these two partitions that we just made with makefs, mkfs.ext4. So we're going to declare a extended for file system named NixOS on dev sda1. And yes, that's fine. And we're going to make swap on sda2. Name swap, that's fine. And now that we have those, let's just clear this mess. Both declared as 12 gigabytes and 8 gigabytes. We're going to mount them into /mount. So I think if we hit the okay, so there's a full system built here. So we're just going to mount it in /mount, which there is nothing in right now. There's nothing in there. So we're going to mount the first block. Now that we've labeled it, we can call it by label instead of SDA1. So we'll do that. Dev disk by label NixOS mount. I keep doing this. I did not call mount. So sudo mount dev disk by label NixOS mount into mount. And then we only have to call swap on SDA2. So that's going to be recognized as a swap device now. And if we NixOS generate config, it will just give us a basic config of the operating system now. And we can put that into mount, which is where we're building our system, which is now on SDA1. So we're going to cd into mount. There's nothing here but the lost and found folder generated by the extended format, the extended file file system format. And go ahead and do that. Sudo NixOS generate config. And the root is going to be the mount, where we're just located here. And so that just writes one directory, etc. And then it gives us the 2 configuration files, which we can go ahead and edit at our leisure here. I did not. Do I have Vim? Yeah. There we go. And in here, we're just going to start uncommenting things. So in here we have, to start, we have our grub2 bootloader. And then underneath here we can start uncommenting for like UEFI, which I've tried a couple times. I didn't really get too far, unfortunately. But we do need to uncomment this and say the SDA is our boot device, which it is. Under here, I'm going to go ahead and set my time zone, which is Chicago. We don't need wireless. I'm wired in. And don't really need to set the UTF-8. I think it's default to set it to UTF-8, but we might as well. Well, no, I'm not going to. It's going to be too hard. Or the last thing we need to do is set up sound. There we go. Oh, and the user, of course. So in here there is user count defined, but not really given too much properties. So in here I'm just going to name user Mac, and then what did I have for this? Initial password, yeah. So just copy that. Initial password. It's going to be password. So whenever I do get greeted by the login manager, I don't have to go into the command shell again to like issue a password reset kind of thing, which is just silly. Once you get to that thing, you want to be in the desktop. So I think I've no, I haven't skipped anything. That's good. I almost thought I skipped something, but nope. I am going to jump out of this for just a second here. Roll down a bit. Get some chats up here. And back up and run. So, the thing I'm going to go back up and do is set my. I'm going to set up my X server, my desktop manager. So I skipped over this, but this enables the X11 Windows system, like it says. So X server is very old, but I don't know how to implement Wayland. I haven't looked that up yet, so I'm not worried about it. For now, I'm just going to do Plasma Desktop, and it's going to be just fine on X like it has always been. So that's enabled. I'm going to just copy this, it's fine. And then we'll copy it again. We'll enable SDDM and Plasma 5 here. Did I spell that right? Manager, yes. Okay, so X server display manager SDDM enable is true. And then we'll copy that. And desktop manager. I definitely misspelled that. Manager. Plasma 5 enable. That'll be good. And I kind of want to put the environment stuff in there for like there's like, you can export easily, pretty easily export the GTK themes for Plasma by putting that in there. But I think I want to do that per user with Home Manager later. So I'm going to leave that out. And this should get us up and running with like the basics of what we're looking for. This one little package, one little file here should get us everything we expect out of our desktop, except for I did forget one thing at the very bottom. I'm glad I got that. You would usually want SSH support if you're doing this on a server. Easy enough. And the thing I forgot to do though is this with packages. So you have to uncomment this. It's wrapping right now. It's okay. Do not forget to add an editor. So yeah, gotta get Vim, wget, Firefox, and then what else did I say? htop, and oh yeah, Vim is really all I wanted. Because Home Manager is going to come after we get things done. Nothing else I've missed, I don't believe. Changes the password. Everything's set. Grub is on SDA1. So what we're going to do now is just type in NixOS-install. And that should take care of everything that we hope to achieve right now. And while this happens, we'll just go ahead and play that music again. Which is technically from my friend Sam. Shout out to Sam. Shout out to On All Sides, and shout out to Sam Brown, the guitarist. So over in this window, I'm kind of playing around, looking at stuff. I've got some articles pulled up from some people, a bunch of wiki articles and stuff as well. And there's a lot of pros and cons to this. So like, NixOS is built on a purely functional, like, kind of mindset. So what that means is like pure reactive programming, such as Haskell, is that you add a function to a function and you receive a function. You're never really playing with objects like you usually would imagine something from JavaScript or Java or C++ even. So you could imagine if there's no objects, passing variables is going to be different. So that's kind of how this whole thing works, is that you're just kind of passing programs to NixOS, and it knows how to build them. So what you saw in that configuration file back there is actually entirely being handled by NixOS right now, to building the system that I've declared from a single configuration file. So the benefits of NixOS are that you write once and deploy anywhere, and then you keep revisions or version control on a place such as Bitbucket or GitLab or GitHub if you want, and you can always refer to it from any device. Declare build requirements for any device that you might want to put it on, and with Home Manager, do that per user, and then go on with what I know about Flakes, which is very little, and I can't explain it. I'll put a video. Maybe at the end of this video we can go have a guy just explain it from YouTube. Might be the best way we can go about doing that. So maybe do that at the very end of the level, the very end of the video here, because I can't explain Flakes at all, but they help you keep version control of Home Manager whenever we get to that point. I don't even know if I can tackle Home Manager tonight. I'm really hoping just to get to the desktop and see HTOP running on a Plasma KDE 5 desktop. That's what I want. If we do that, then it's a success. The rest is just stuff I want to tackle in the future with this. If we could do it tonight, that would be awesome too. Because the night is young. But we'll see. I'm going to let this do its thing. We're going to go ahead and listen to another song by On All Sides, because why not? I have the access and the power.
is done boiling. The Joker is toiling. It was just a dream, you see. It's not that bad. In fact, it's even better than it used to be. You see, hidden under layers of mud and turmoil, through breaking waves of mercury, scripting out a life of toil. The laughs cut through. The laughs cut through. The frog is done boiling. The Joker is toiling. It was just a dream, you see. It's not that bad. In fact, it's even better than it used to be. You see, better than it used to be.
Okay then. So, looks like things are potentially good. Oops. Oh, I guess I typed the right password the second time. It felt like I failed. So we're just going to give this a good reboot and let it hang for a second. When we do, this screen, well, I take the medium out of the VirtualBox. And we'll reset the machine. Oh yes, okay, so we're gonna let it hang here for a second. That feels good. So what I'm expecting to happen next, let me get my stuff back in order here. There's no chats up anymore. My notes are gone. My browser's out of the way. That's good. Organized. We're good. So what I expect to see here is SDDM, which is the simple display manager or something like that. Serve us our profile, Mac. I expect the password to be password, and expect it to boot a Plasma 5 desktop with HTOP capable of running in, oh no, it's going to be Xterm. Oh no, we didn't declare Alacrity or anything. Oh no, okay, so we're going to have to suffer the white background if that's the case. Hopefully Plasma installed a console. That would be really nice for us. Surely it did. Okay. The anticipation is building. We're going to take a 2-minute break because of that anticipation. It's even better whenever the anticipation builds like this. Can you light another one for me? I know that's silly. Wait, what? I think I only had those two. Okay.
Hold on.
Those them? Are those them?
The ones over there.
Are those them? I got a minute 52. Okay, so we're actually going to come on back in. I think I was unmuted that whole time, which is fun. I do love live performance. But we're going to get right back to it. I just really like this this overlay here. It's my favorite thing I've made today. So, and we're right back into it. I'm going to turn this down. So, like I said right before the break, I do expect to see the Plasma desktop appear with SDDM running. I wanted to wait for Jesse for this because it's been a long time coming. I've worked on this for a couple days. Nix is really hard to understand. There it is. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. All right. Mac has the password for password. I think I'm way more excited than him, but, you know, I think he's probably a little excited too, because he's not actually seen this work either. I've tried like 4 times probably. What? 4? This 5th? Yeah. 5th time's the charm, is the truth. Come on, Plasma. Let's see it. Oh no. We might go into rescue mode. SDDM booted. We should be seeing the Plasma desktop and like setup happening like any moment now. No, we get us a black screen instead. The anticipation that I have. Oh no, it's not gonna work. Oh no, it's just gonna hang. Let's see the other TTYs. Anything on 7? No? Anything on 8? That's I think where we're hanging up. On 8. I think that's where it's trying to load into. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 doesn't do anything. That might be it. Because 8 actually is probably the Xwork server running. Okay. Let's see what's up. I think I typed a capital. Okay, so at least we're in. Let's check out the build here. And if we sudo into the Nix, is that it? Where we want to go? No. Cannot recall where. Oh, it says header, of course, etc. NixOS config. Let's do this. So what I know we can do, actually, let's try one thing before I change any of this. I should have logged off instead of rebooted, but reboot doesn't hurt. We know that we at least get X to work, and that SDDM comes up. At Plasma that we're failing. So let's make sure, yeah, desktop Plasma X11. So it is trying to boot the right environment. That's what I was worried about, is just that maybe it wasn't. But it is. So it goes into X, and it tries to load Plasma, I do believe, and then starts to fail here. So we'll go back to TTY1. We should have maybe just logged in as root. We don't have a root password, do we? Yeah, we do. Is that a root password? Password. Is that not it? And so the NixOS and configuration. So we're just going to go down and delete this. I actually just commented out because that should have worked, but it didn't. What we're going to do instead is I think we can just do GNOME or GNOME if you prefer, and we'll do GDM instead of SDDM. I think GNOME.enable will work. So we'll just call NixOS. We'll just call. We're gonna call NixOS. No. We're gonna call what was it? Not NixOS. NVM. NixENV. Switch. Is that right? I don't think that's right. Can't remember. That may be a bad call. My part. So we'll refer to. That's why I have that window open over here. So this window over to the right of the screen, just for such cases as this, so we can look up. Is it Nix build? I think it's Nix build. I could be wrong, so I'm just going to look at it real quick. No, I don't believe so, no. How come I'm blanking on this? So it's Nix. Let's go to the NixOS cheat sheet so we can just quickly look into this. Zoom out just a little bit. So hard to see this. Even... Yeah, NixOS rebuild switch. That's what I'm looking for. This right here. Zoom back in. So if you add something to the configuration.nix, you have to run the NixOS rebuild switch command, which is what I was blanking on. Now, NixOS rebuild switch. I was thinking, for some reason, the ENV thing had something to do with it, but that should just completely rebuild the system with the new configuration that we made, which is now GDM and the GNOME desktop environment. So it should be really cool. It's going to take a second to download that stuff, though. So we'll just watch it happen. What else can we look at while that does happen? I remember to check out Jupiter Broadcasting, the NixOS Challenge episode. What is this number? Episode. Well, it's from March 27th. Just a couple weeks back, they announced this, and since then I've been playing with NixOS, and it's really hardcore. For some reason, it seems like the right path to take Linux in. So that was episode 451, if you want to check that on your podcatcher. So, grab a new podcast app that supports boosting and check it out. Find your wallet and get to boosting. So we might try to do Home Manager if this works out. Home Manager is, like it says, a system for managing a home environment using the Nix package manager itself. But it lets you basically install packages just user-wide. So if I wanted to have myself as a user, Jesse as a user, for example, if he's trying to just understand what Linux is capable of, maybe just give him a user that can just run on the Plasma desktop as intended, like fully deck it out, or Xmonad for myself, give these systems like a run for their money without having to really muddy up your own desktop environment. Like, so set a user that's called Xmonad, and then build an Xmonad environment in that user is something that's really interesting to me. Or a user that's just called Nginx, or it's a specialty tool for Nginx, like declaring users as the purpose for what's contained in the environment whenever it's built is kind of a cool thing that NixOS lets you do rather than containerizing things. And then there's something that I got into too early on that I'd like to go back to, and I was too early on to know what I was actually getting into. But there is a number of like worker profiles that are already built in. Like there's this whole multi-user environment that's built underneath NixOS that is based on like the idea of how functional reactive programming works in Haskell, where like workers kind of are spun up as needed, and they use a number of build profiles for those things. So as we're seeing here, I think each of these things might be using a build worker. I don't know if that's the case, but from what it seems, that's kind of what the intent is of those build workers, is to parallel building on these packages, since most systems are capable of building like many small packages all at once. So I think that's kind of what they're doing, as far as I'm aware. But I got into it way too early, and I haven't come back to it to clarify if that's the case or not. But these big long strings that you're seeing, like A, Y, X, H, N, 3, P, Y, like that big long string that doesn't make any sense, is the store doing revisions. So every time you make a change to the system, there's a revision being made on the entirety of the operating system. So if there is a problem, it rolls back to, I think, 3 or 4 versions, and you can tell it to do more. As far as I'm aware, you can tell it to do more and to store these revisions elsewhere and do offsite backups and do cloning of those revisions. So if you wanted to have like one machine bleeding edge and then one machine that's just stable from your own build, you can kind of declare that kind of stuff with your configuration file, store it on your GitHub, and do a crazy version control and management of multiple machines through one configuration file, and then also multiple home manager configuration files tied back to that same environment that is like a solid foundation. And it takes a while if you're adding a lot, right? But I'm not doing like a make I and then a /configure, and I'm not going in there, I'm like touching a bunch of C headers, right? I'm not doing on any of that here. If I'm trying to like rebuild something and maybe add the RTMP module to Nginx, but also maybe make changes, you might get into some muddy territory trying to work on a system that has a module that has like then a extra configuration or stuff like that. Like I don't know how to handle all that just yet, but it is something that I'm very interested in doing. And then even further, I don't know what it takes to reload say kernel modules or whatever it is in this kind of environment, but I'm sure it works very well because everything else just seems to be like, hey, use a different thing, and it works. So hopefully it just gives us control again. It doesn't hang up here because it looks like it's hanging up. But when we reboot, we should have a different display manager, the GDM display manager, and then, or the login manager, or whatever it's called. And then the desktop environment should be GNOME, a very basic gray, no apps but Firefox and HTOP kind of GNOME shell. I think it's hanging up on us though. Honestly, it looks like it's really just kind of hanging out. Been sitting there for a minute. There it goes. Cool. I'm so glad I didn't escape that, because that would have been just bad. Let's reboot. Where's my stuff at? There. Is it gonna work? Is it doing anything? Oh, goodness gracious. Alright, I hope that still looks awesome to you, because it doesn't to me. Stretched across my whole... That's awesome. It's totally not giving me control back and any capabilities. Do I have another? Can I go into... Is it safe to just reboot? Probably. Give it a hard reset. Ouch. See what happens here. So all the configurations, right, if you rebuild it, they should all come into here. So my configuration 1 has been changed now to configuration 2. And then so on and so forth. So like I've seen builds that are like 600 configurations and stuff, and they're just wild. So we'll get there one day, but right now we're doing revision 2. And it's just to get GNOME instead of Plasma because it failed on us. So this is going to be a little bit of a different looking thing, but the same approach, right? Or just be using a different login screen. Not Plasma. I really want Plasma KDE. What did I do wrong? Okay, so that looks just slightly different than what we were doing before. Password, like before. Come on, GNOME. Cross our fingers, GNOME. Do your thing. You should see the top bar pop up with like a little black activities thing. Oh, good. White activities thing, looks like. Oh, good. We have a desktop environment. That's what I wanted to see with Plasma, but we didn't get it, unfortunately. Hey, I'll tell you, I have a long-running history with Plasma just not working out for me. I'm going to be honest. I wanted it every time I've installed like Fedora. I've installed Fedora for so many times trying to get Plasma to work. And then I always end up back on Ubuntu or, my Arch Linux installations or something like that. But haven't really touched Arch lately, and this seems like a really fun project since since not having Arch at my fingertips for like the last year. We made it to the desktop, so that's good. Let's just go into the programs because I don't think there's any. I don't think there's anything here. Oh, we got the web. Go into our files real quick. At least we should have, yeah, we should have like a folder structure here now. So that's in, yeah, so that's in our /home/Mac folder that we're getting here. So we have all these folder locations that you'd expect on a desktop. Let's see what desktop backgrounds come with next. There's probably 0. Gonna be real, there's like barely anything that comes along with this. Okay, regular, backgrounds. Let's change it to this one. Yeah. Here we go. Hey, that looks nice. Now we're getting, now it's looking like an okay place to hang out, not gray and drab. Let's see what happens when we hit this. It should give us Firefox. Is that Firefox? It doesn't say. No. Firefox. Firefox, hey, it is here. So Firefox is going to be our default browser. Hopefully, if it loads. Let's see if it loads first before we make those declarations. Because the last thing I said I wanted to use didn't work, unfortunately. Oh, good. You can trust Firefox to work, I'm going to be honest. So we'll just go to Jupiter Broadcasting.com. I think Colony. .jb. Does that work? Hey, got an Nginx page. Oops, I don't think that was it. So let's look for the matrix. So Linux Unplugged, maybe. Colony.Linux Unplugged, maybe. They should definitely get on to Matrix. It is like a decentralized, self-hosted version of Discord, something like that. It's coming along nicely. There's not a whole lot of features. There's not like all the emojis or, all the cool features of like video calling yet or nothing like that, or streaming, nothing like that. But it is the basis of what Discord was many, many years back. So it could be cool in the future if you wanted to join up. And this is how you would get started. You check out Linux Unplugged, of course, first and foremost, which is a podcast hosted by Jupiter Broadcasting. Go to linuxunplugged.com/matrixinfo to check more of it out. Get involved. There's a channel in there called Nix Nerds. Those dudes are going to help you. They're just going to help you out whenever you ask questions. So if you have problems, they're just going to help you. And then I'm really glad that worked. We're going to open up whatever terminal we just got. Terminal. Oh, good. It's not Xterm. Oh, good. Oh, it's still white. I love it. It uses Xterm. It uses Xterm to give us a white terminal. Easy on the eyes. A white terminal, I'll tell you. Easy on the eyes. We're gonna. At least it's got like this nice wallpaper in the background still. Can we get it? Can we make it transparent at least? Oh, it would be so good if it just said, hey, do you want to make it dark screen? It was just not gonna work. Alright. Oops. So let's run HTOP. We did it. This is challenge complete from Jupiter Broadcasting's NixOS challenge. Luckily, we got GNOME instead of Plasma, but we made it work. So, big thumbs up. Just give me a big thumbs up, please. Oh my gosh. It's been fun. So we're going to continue on this. I think this is really a fun project. the NixOS challenge is probably my favorite thing so far. The Arch challenge really got me onto Arch full time. And then I branched out and put it on servers and stuff, and then came back to Ubuntu, of course. But I think we'll stop here. I don't know if there's any problems with the stream tonight, but we'll work through them next time. I still want to see about putting Home Manager on here. If it's easy. I know it's not easy. I know it's like downloading from Git. I didn't install Git in this revision. Maybe that's the next thing I'll do is start by installing Git. See if you have to kind of manage your dot files, and I don't want to necessarily show those. You know, I might not want to, or maybe I'll set up something else. Maybe I'll set up like a local GitLab and do it like a dummy user and have simple credentials. That would be fun, because that would actually be really fun to just be able to show full plain text everything, and not have to worry about encrypting my actual credentials for GitHub, because that's silly. And it should be easy enough to host one. Okay, well, I don't know how long this was, but I think it was fun, at least. And next time, we have something to remember. That it takes some skill to really do this, and the only way you can do that is through reading ridiculous text and watching videos. So, like I said before, I do want to show one video before I get out of here. I want to show the guy I was talking about earlier. Talk about what a flake is, because you in NixOS can configure everything in your home directory to have its own application. So if I wanted VLC, or if I wanted Firefox only in one, if I wanted Firefox in one instance of my user profile, or I wanted Chrome in like maybe the one that watches Netflix or whatever. I don't know if that's still a thing, but Chrome will allow Netflix, right? Is the last word I've heard. So being able to switch between profiles like that, like say, oh, I want only Chrome in here, and then I want this profile to be that, or even more so, like I want this Haskell environment in this profile, and I want a C++ stack over here, and then like different configurations for Vim exist in either or. That's really kind of cool concept to go for. Or say, you can make Emacs into its own operating system. So if you had two of those in one profile had one, and one profile had the other, you can do an infinite number of things with separate profile management like that. So I wanted him to explain kind of what the flakes are, because it's really a cool concept. I'm going to look for that real quick and pull that up, and it's just going to be a couple minutes. Luckily, it's not going to be super long, but I don't know how to explain it like he does. We're going to find him. His name is Will Taylor. He goes by Will T on YouTube. He's kind of hard to find, but you'll find him WIL space T, Will T, and he has a NixOS tutorial. It's like maybe the best thing I could find was his explanation on flakes. And I'm sure if you go to the manual and you really read through it, you'll get like the understanding, but like the overview thing is not really addressed anywhere on YouTube so far.
Hello, I'm Will.
So for now, I'm going to do a thing on the fly. See if I can't just get this to work in one take. Because that would be pretty legit if you can just get a thing to work in one try. Always good. We'll do a secondary Chrome thing there. And it duplicated that. That's good. Wanted it to do. We will do another thing. Takes hold. So this is a 30-minute video if you want to check them out. But so far we are just going to watch his explanation of Flakes, which is like this whole new thing. It's like an experimental new thing with NixOS, and it's like what makes this revision control like on par with systems such as Ansible, which is like a Git-based version control for your entire desktop, and like it full administration suites and stuff like that. So we're gonna see if this is gonna work first and foremost. And it kind of looks like it is, but it kind of also doesn't look like it is. Let's do one of these things. This will be fine. I think this will be just fine if it works. Moving. Why isn't it working? That's not it. Those are my notes. There's chat. Here it is. Goodness sakes. Does it go full screen? Oh, good. Cool, look at that. It worked. So we're going to put me over it again. And we're going to check him out real quick. I think he explains it pretty early on. His name is Will T once again. And definitely check out his video on, his video series on installing NixOS. The dude is pretty fluent in this stuff, it seems. And there's only like one issue with his videos, is that like the newest versions kind of don't match up whenever it comes to UEFI so far, is what I've understood. But it might be just on my PC, right? Just my machine so far. I haven't tested on 2. And I'm only using VirtualBox, so I'm not going to make that declaration just yet. But from what I can tell, there's only one small thing that's out of date, and it seems like it can be circumvented with the documentation that he actually points at in the video. It's like video 3 or something in this series, so no worries there.
In this video, I'm going to go through how to move your NixOS system.
We cannot hear him.
Your home manager configuration into a Nix Flake file. Now,
we can't hear him still, so let's turn this up. Is this where he's at?
the main reason why you want to do this is it helps you control the versions of packages that you're currently pointing at. Because instead of using the system Nix channel, it'll actually store that information in a flake.log file, which can actually be committed into a Git repo. So it means rolling back to the previous versions and seeing what versions you're on.
Okay, so we're actually going to
get
to that.
Hello, I'm Will, and in this video I'm going to go through how to move your NixOS system configuration and your home manager configuration into a Nix Flake file. Now, the main reason why you want to do this is it helps you control the versions of packages that you're currently pointing at. Because instead of using the system Nix channel, it'll actually store that information in a flake.log file, which can actually be committed into a Git repo. So it means rolling back to the previous versions and seeing what versions you're on at a particular stage is a lot easier to do. It also means you can manage updating your system a lot easier as well. So to start with, we've got our configuration from the previous video where we went through the installation of Nix, home manager, and then how to get it into a Git repo. So the first thing we actually need to do is we'll need to make some changes to our system configuration. So if we have a look in here, we've got our config from before, and yeah, you'll see all the packages that we've got installed and everything like that. So the main thing that we want to do is we actually need to make some changes to Nix itself. Now, the reason why we need to do this is we need to update the version of Nix that we've got installed on the system. So it's like a pre-release version that supports Flakes. But we also need to make some changes to the Nix configuration file so that we can actually make use of the new features. So we go into Nix, you'll see this file here. Yeah, you'll see it's got a whole bunch of stuff in here. We actually need an entry called experimental features, which isn't in here. But as you'll know, you can't actually modify this file directly because it's read only. If we do a ls, yeah, you'll see it's pointing into the static section of the exe/static nix, etc., which then points into the nix store, so we can't modify it directly. So the easiest way of modifying it is actually doing it through your system configuration. So what we can do is let's just do a section here. Let's call it make ready for nix flakes, and we'll just say nix.package equals packages.nix flakes. So that's basically the current version of the package, which is compatible with nix flakes. And then we can also do a nix.extra options equals, what this does is this will actually append something to the end of your nix config. So all we have to do here is just go experimental features.
Nix is all about appending config
features
options
like so, and then we just want to set nix
the program
command
through
flakes. So these are the two settings
external config
that you need to set to enable nix flakes to work properly. So if we do that, and then we quit out, and then we just go back. Now you'll remember we created these nice scripts so that we can do all of our updates. So if we have a look at apply system.sh, you'll see what it does is it basically goes in here and it tells us to switch to this setting here. So we'll just run that, apply system, and it'll ask us for our root password because we need to elevate to be able to reapply the system, which makes sense. So let that thing go off and do its thing. So it's going off, building the configuration, applying all the settings that we've just set. Okay, so now that we've done the rebuild of our system configurations, you'll see we're actually running the pre-release version of Nix, and if we go and cat the nix.config file, you'll see now it's got this experimental features section down the bottom. Cool. So what that means is we can now go nix flake init to actually set up the flake like we did in the previous flake video. So that will create this file, and then we can just go into that file and we can make all of our changes. So first thing we're going to do is let's set this to something cool like my awesome system config of doom, something like that. And let's get rid of this boilerplate junk that we don't want in here as well. We don't want the hello package. And we also want to chuck in an inputs block, like you might remember from the previous video. Like this is basically saying all the external stuff that we want to reference in our flake. So in this case, we want to do nix packages.url. Now, because nix packages is special, it has like a special URL, so we can say, in our case here, it's nix packages slash, let's do NixOS 20.09. So that's like the channel that we're targeting. And we'll also bring in home manager. Manager.url equals, this time we're going to get something from GitHub. So on the Nix community, Nix-community GitHub organization, there's where home manager, which I've explained previously. Now the version of home manager we want to target, so the actual branch from that repository that we want to target is called release 20.09, which you might remember when we first installed home manager was where the it mentioned depending on the version of NixOS that you're running, depends on which branch you want to target. So in our case, if we're going for 2009, you go for release 2009, and if you're going for Nix unstable,
so what he's showing here is going to be the way that the version control is handled through this flake
personally,
operation.
I'm using unstable because it's a little bit more like a rolling release distribution, but you'll occasionally get a few things break here and there, which aren't too hard to fix. But if you want like a release that only gets updated like maybe a couple of times a year, obviously except for security patches, stick with one of the release channels. I think 2105 is coming out soon, so yeah, you could just go in here and literally just change that over to that once it's released as well. Alrighty, cool. So we've put the two inputs that we want to pull into this flake. One last thing we want to do is actually tell the home manager flake to use our version of Nix packages rather than its own. So we can do that by going inputs.nix packages.follows. and then we say Nix packages, and basically what that's saying is, hey, home manager, use our version of Nix packages, don't use your own one, because you don't want these two to fall out of sync, because they'll be pointing at two different versions, which can mean you're downloading two different packages for the same thing, or worse, you might get some really weird unexpected behavior. So always make sure to tell inputs from other flakes that you bring in to follow the versions that you've is on free. So I always just set this to true. If you don't want any unfree software on your system, then don't set that. But yeah, it's something that you want to set. I think the main reason why they do that is they don't want that software to get pulled down and processed by Hydra, which is like their CI/CD system, because you can't build them, so there's kind of no point in it doing that. And also configurations that it contains. So if we go NixOS configurations, we can actually set up all of our system configurations inside here. So the way this generally works is you name the configuration the name of the host, and then it'll automatically look for a configuration that's got that host's name when you use NixOS rebuild. So in our case, our host name is actually testbox. So we'll just call it testbox, and then we go equals, and then inside here we need to use a special function. So the function is called lib.nixos system, and then it takes a set as a parameter, like so. And then basically that's got all the configuration for that Nix system. So you might have remembered when I was talking about how absolutely everything that Nix does ends up becoming a derivation. You might be wondering why your NixOS configuration file is like a set, because what happens we have to do to make a flake that will bring in our old configuration. So if we go out of that, and then we just go Nix OS rebuild, and we say build, which what this will do is this will build our system configuration, but it won't yet apply it. So we can actually have a look at it and sort of see what's happening. And we just go flake. Now what we can do is if we go dot, that means current directory, hash means the flake in that current directory. Now we don't actually have to put anything after that. Like we could put the computer name, so we could go like testbox, but because this machine's host name is testbox, if we just do that, it's actually going to look for the system configuration for this current system. So if we just go like that, it's going to go off and build it, which can take a while, as you know. I've pre-built it so it goes a bit faster. So now if we have a look, if we go into the results folder, you'll see this looks very similar to the run/current system, and you'll see over here we've got this activate script, and this is just the script that NixOS rebuild will call. Oh, there's a lot of stuff in here. Yeah, it is a massive script. Yeah, it'll actually call this script to apply the current configuration to the system. So yeah, anything that's the whole entire install is done, is it's going to go through and make sure everything's set up. So like, yeah, it's got so much stuff in here. So like it'll set the kernel, it'll set all sorts of stuff up. But yeah, we don't need to go through that because it's massive. You can go.
Okay, yeah, so I wanted to give that guy a chance to explain what the heck a flake does. So basically what he had just set up in that 17 minutes worth of video that I hopefully scrubbed through enough to make it not 17 minutes worth, was packaging his entire system, right, down to a reproducible, version controlled, like a couple of files that he could just send to his GitHub repo. And he built in that file, that results folder, he built the entire thing that I installed just now. That if I would have then just hit activate, right, instead of getting that terminal that I started with tonight with the minimal install, he would then get whatever he declared in that user environment up to that point. If he then went and pulled that down on his laptop, right, then he would go on to have that same exact system as it was whenever he pushed that revision to his version control. So that's what makes NixOS very powerful, is that like built in, it uses a platform or a file system called ZFS, I do believe in any case. I'm pretty sure that's what I've seen, is that it uses ZFS under the hood. which has like the kind of rollback capabilities that we would expect. Other file systems that do that are like Btrfs, which is what Facebook uses. So there's other operating systems out there that do other things, or you can use different file systems that will do different things. But NixOS uses ZFS, which is what BSD has declared tried and true, FreeBSD especially. So super about that. I'm going to go ahead and remove this window. I think it is. It is actually this window. There we go. And what is that over there? Oh, what's happening over there, I wonder? I can't figure out what to do with Chrome anymore. That's okay. Sometimes you'll have that, but I did want to show the one last thing here. Of course, now that we've looked at that flake example, which is pretty dense in its own right. Is it? No? We might be done at that. This is it. So this system right here, this file right here. Oh boy. Oh boy. So this is an example for your home manager package. So I'm going to pull it up on this screen too. We got HChop running, that's cool. We're just going to leave HChop running forever. And in this file, let's go to... We could download it and put it into the thing, but I don't know that we should. Should we? Does this work? No. I'm not into that. Let's just leave it as is. So it does a bunch of stuff here is what I'm realizing. This person's like making functions and then calls to do commands at the top of their profile, and then in their home.packages for their home manager they apply a bunch of packages like you would expect for like a desktop environment. You need like a zip program, you need a download program, you need VLC, HChop, which is what I just installed, Atom for programming, Gradle for building, you need things, Slack, what else is in here? Vagrant for building, stuff like that, GNUMake. So this is like a build environment for Emacs. They got all kinds of stuff, Google stuff even. Google Play Music Player, interesting. So like they have just stuff that they need, right? All these LibreOffice and stuff, Vim, they have Elixir, so they're doing, what Nix is best at, which is functional programming. So they have all this stuff attached to their Vim output. So this is stuff that I'm hoping to get to, is like setting up my Vim correctly, and really digging into it at my next stream or two. Be really fun. So you have to do all these inline configs like tmux.conf equals this, blah blah blah. So I'm pretty interested in how this all works. I really enjoy it so far. But until the next time comes around, I'm going to go ahead and call this stream actually quits for now. Say goodbye. Goodbye. Zoom out with the same music we started with, because it's great. Peace.